All right, we are live and we are back after taking a week off while we were preparing for Heartland's 40th anniversary benefit dinner, and we've got a lot of news to cover. So, in the time since our last episode, we had a presidential debate. We have accusations of cheating during that debate. We've had yet another attempt on Donald Trump's life. So we're going to be diving into the just absolute horrid state of our media industry before talking about the state of the race with only 46 days left before the 2024 presidential election. Buckle up because we've got a lot to talk about on this episode of the In the Tank podcast.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
That is right, Kamala. And this is the In the Tank podcast. As always, I'm your host, Donald Kendal. And joining me today, I've got a full crew. I've got Jim Lakely, VP of the Heartland Institute. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing very well. I'm a little concerned about you, Donnie. That might have been the most low energy cold open I've ever heard you read off to start off the show. So, it's not like you have, two young boys that you're trying to raise and, maybe be up at night or anything like that. But
yeah, two young boys that are sick with a fever and not going to school because they're both sick. So yes,
yeah. Well, you have some things going on. But yeah, it's great to be back in the saddle and back on the show after taking last week off to prepare for our 40th anniversary benefit dinner at the Heartland Institute. It was such a great night. It was fantastic. So maybe we'll talk a little about that later.
We probably will. Chris Talgo, editorial director here at the Heartland Institute. How are you doing today, good sir?
Doing good, Sleepy Downey.
Is it that bad? Maybe I'm just coming down with something. I'm not entirely sure. But Sam Karnick, senior fellow for the Socialism Research Center. New title, same great insights. How are you doing today, good sir?
Good, Donald. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I thought I was doing wonderful, but maybe I'm dragging through this. I'm not entirely sure.
A little sleepy.
That's why I ask. Don't go by appearances.
Drowsy Donald, I guess is what,
Drowsy Donald. That's good.
That's my nickname for today. So benefit dinner. That was. I kind of expected to do an episode last week. We do our show on Thursdays. The benefit dinner was on Friday. I think in years past that we've done an episode in that day prior to benefit dinners. But when I was just looking at the slate in that week leading up to it, of the stuff that I needed to get done before that benefit dinner, I was like, there's no way we're fitting in a show. So sorry for the no notice that we weren't doing a show last week, but we're usually pretty good about doing shows, whether there's rain, sleet, or snow. We got a lot of stuff to catch up on.
And there was so much to talk about. It was a very newsy week, and then we just had the debate. I mean, that debate between Kamala and Donald Trump seems like 3 months ago, and it was last week.
Yes, yeah. The news cycle. We've had like 15 different news cycles since then. But you know what? There's still some stuff to talk about, and we're gonna get to a lot of stuff in this episode. So. Those people that are watching the show, you can see this new little feature that we got going on over here, this little sidebar that's going to be showing all the different topics that we're going to be talking about. I think it's a pretty cool little, a nod to like what Sports Center or something like that used to do that, or maybe they still do. I don't watch Sports Center anymore, but that's we're gonna stick to this model so you can kind of see all the topics that we're going to talk about right there on the sidebar. So pretty cool.
Just a very quick comment on Sports Center. So ESPN, I used to be a humongous fan of ESPN, used to watch Sports Center, all those shows, pardon the interruption. I cannot believe how woke it's gone. I just subscribed to ESPN Plus just because I wanted to watch those 30 for 30, the library. Even the 30 for 30 library is just full of woke nonsense. They did this whole thing about Derek Jeter, and it was half produced by Spike Lee, and it was just race. So man, I can't stand ESPN anymore. It sucks.
That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But yeah, so Jim, as Jim mentioned, we had our benefit dinner. It was great. I think it went very well. No hiccups or anything. No speakers being stuck at the airport or having their planes delayed or anything like it's happened in past years. But Jim, I don't know. You were milling about with all of the attendees. Did you get nice comments? Did everyone enjoy their time there?
We had a lot of great comments. I think, it was one of our best ever. I mean, the Heartland Studio, we take a lot of pride actually in pulling off and executing flawlessly large events like that. Our climate conferences that we've done 15 of those all around the country and some international spots. So, I was kind of stage managing it, making sure all the speakers got to where they got to be on time, try to stay on schedule. We went a little long, but having more program than less program is not something most attendees would complain about. Our featured speaker was the great Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform Party in the UK, the captain of Brexit, the person who got that over the line. And it was my pleasure to basically be his body man all day Friday. And then we had some time with him on Saturday. We went to a cigar lounge and recorded an interview that Andy, our producer Andy, the great producer Andy, was with us, and I helped him set up a 2-camera thing, and so we're gonna have a nice interview with him. We talked to him for about 40 minutes, and we're gonna be releasing videos of that conversation very soon. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, the leader of the Great Barrington Declaration, when he put his reputation and his job on the line to tell the truth about the pandemic and vaccines, he was a featured speaker. And then Dr. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, the very worthy recipient of our Heartland Liberty Prize. There's probably not an institution in America that is doing more to teach the future generations what America is all about and why and how it needs to be preserved. So I know some people in the chat right now watching this on YouTube live. We're there, and we appreciated seeing you guys there, and we hope to see you again at the next one.
Just want to add one thing. So I invited my parents to this and one of my sisters, and afterwards we talked about it. And my dad and mom both thought that the Nigel Farage speech was the greatest speech that they've ever seen in person. So I think that's pretty significant.
That's pretty great. Yeah, and everybody will be able to see these presentations, the speeches from our benefit dinner. We're going to be posting those on this very YouTube channel and Rumble within the next week or so.
Oh, fantastic. I was going to ask about that. Very nice. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, so we should just jump into it here. So first topic of discussion would be what I've labeled here as Trump assassination attempt part 2, maybe the sequel. I don't know what we're going to call it when they eventually make a movie out of our whole timeline here. But this news dates back to Sunday, which seems like ages ago. I think everyone's like moved on past all of this. So, but we're going to talk about it because this is obviously worth talking about. So everyone knows the story, at least you should. Around midday on this past Sunday, news came out that there was another attempt on Donald Trump's life, this time while he was out golfing. Donald Trump was on hole 5. Secret Service was scouting the next hole and saw a muzzle sticking out of the fence and bushes. Secret Service engaged the suspect, and the suspect fled, hopped in the car, took off. Witnesses saw the suspect run. They took pictures of the car. They got the license plate number. Authorities, using that information, were able to track down the car and the suspect via license plate readers on the highway. The suspect, identified as Ryan Wesley Routh, was arrested. Investigators found in the bushes a scoped rifle, a GoPro camera, and ballistic bulletproof plates to offer protection in this like sniper's nest that was set up in the bushes. And I think that most people's reaction to this story was, again, seriously? Like this just happened a couple of months ago. So, Chris, I'm going to throw it to you first. What were your thoughts when you first saw this story?
I was extremely surprised. I told you I actually had walked in from the golf course and went to the clubhouse, and it was on the TV, and I was just like, "Oh my God, not again!" So, wow, I was really surprised. But more information's come out, and there's a lot of questions about this one that need to be answered. So this guy was traveling all over the world, Hawaii, Poland, Ukraine, Romania. He was trying to put together mercenary forces in Ukraine. First of all, this guy was, let's just say, not the wealthiest person. Last check, he had $68 to his name. So how did he afford to travel internationally and stay in Poland and Romania and Ukraine and Hawaii for, weeks, if not months? How did he fly to Florida? How did he just happen to, stumble upon a stolen car with stolen plates and a AK-47 with the serial number scratched off? Pretty interesting. So it's way too early to jump to conclusions here. I think the media has a really bad tendency in these days to just always try to jump to the conclusion. But let's just say that there's a lot more that needs to be investigated here in terms of his ties to, there are people who were with him in Ukraine who alerted the FBI and the federal government on multiple occasions saying this guy is extremely dangerous. He's talking about assassinating Putin. He's talking about assassinating Biden and Trump. He's talking about assassinating Kim Jong-un. This guy is just really dangerous. And here we are now, all I can say is, it's terrible that the Secret Service let this happen, but there's also another big question that needs to be answered. He was there 12 hours. So he was there well before the golf event was even announced, because this was a last-minute golf outing announced. So how did he know that? How?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question, and I'm sure I don't even know, because on one hand, this is crazy news, but on the other hand, the way that the news cycle goes, it's like, all right, yeah, we already forgot about that. The first assassination attempt is so ancient history at this point that I feel like the average person's almost forgot about it.
But it's funny. But it's funny that you bring up the past assassination attempt. Yeah, that happened July 13th. We still have no answers on that. So There are still a lot of questions that need to be answered in terms of that and in terms of this one. Why did they not scout the golf course ahead of time? The fifth hole or the sixth hole where he was in the bushes was first of all, this is Donald Trump's golf course, so he's played there multiple times. The Secret Service knows all the vulnerable points, and that is the most vulnerable point. Why did they not have someone there ahead of time? Why did they not, scout the entire premises ahead of time? So there's all sorts of questions here.
Yeah, no doubt. Sam, what was your reaction to this? Because mine, I am incredibly skeptical of the headlines that I see, and I always think what is the least interesting way that this headline could still be somewhat accurate? And my thoughts when I saw the headline about shooting in the area or something like that was all right, there was some gang interaction four blocks away, and they're making it seem like it's some Trump thing. And then I was later that I found out no, this was actually somebody in the sniper's nest trying to take out Donald Trump. That I was what? This is insane. What were your reactions?
Well, first of all, obviously, it should be shocking, but it really wasn't to me. It just seemed like inevitable that this is going to continue to happen. It was interesting that a day or so later, Trump and Biden spoke by telephone, and Biden said, Trump said, we need more protection over here. And Biden said, yes, so you need more protection. We have to ramp that up. Said, so all you have to do is get Congress to give us more money. And I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. It's well, okay, I can forgive the debt of former college students who forgive their college debt just by waving a magic wand, but I can't get protection, which is already on the books, to a presidential candidate. Just seems a bit odd. So these things are done by choice, and we're going to continue to go down the path of asking these questions. Why did this or that happen? All the elements of it that seem to come together to lead to a very strange, as the New York Times put it, apparent assassination attempt. It all seems very strange how these things come together. And yet, when you look at it, as you point out, that all of a sudden it's forgotten. It's forgotten just a few days later. And that's very interesting because Charlottesville is not forgotten. It's just misremembered. That Trump said that there are good people on both sides of the tearing down statues debate.
Sure.
I guess you could say a good person could believe in tearing down statues that don't belong to them. I suppose it's possible, but it seems to me they're wrong.
Right.
So if anything, Trump was more right than the people who claim that that there's only one side of that. But the notion that now that he was saying that Nazis are good is now part of the history of the United States, apparently, and you can say it in a debate. And the debate so-called moderators who are questioning everything that is said by the one candidate will say
we'll get
nothing
into all
about
of
that.
yeah, we'll get into all of that for
Hey,
sure. But
Hey, one other quick point that I got to make real quick. So the Secret Service used to be under the Treasury Department, and now they are under the Department of Homeland Security. Mayorkas has not even mentioned this yet. How is that possible? How is it possible that the Department of Homeland Security has fumbled this badly, and we have not even gotten a statement from the head of the Department of Homeland Security? I find that unbelievable. And also, I've lost confidence in the Secret Service, just like I've lost confidence in the FBI. Now I've lost confidence in the entire Department of Homeland Security. So this is just really, really does not bode well for Americans having confidence in these institutions that we really should be, able to rely upon.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, did we ever get a press conference after the July 13th attempt? I know that they did a press conference and people were expecting them to answer some questions, but they came out immediately and like, we're not answering any questions about that. We're just talking about the RNC and how we've got it covered.
Local officials held a press conference. The Secret Service refused, and that's exactly how this happened. And thank God for Ron DeSantis, because he's doing a supplementary investigation of this. Because guess what? We can't trust the FBI. We can't trust Christopher Wray, and they're in charge of this right now.
Jim, I mean, you could take this in any direction you want. I mean, there's obviously you're just general reactions, the diminishing trust, if there is any, in our institutions. We can get into the media side of all of this, but just your initial comments.
Well, first of all, Chris, to what you brought up, the media is not getting the answers to the first assassination attempt, let alone getting any answers to the second assassination attempt. And they are purposely not investigating this. They're purposely not covering this the way you would think they normally would, because that would keep it in the news, see, and make people, maybe they end up being sympathetic to Trump. As human nature is to be sympathetic to somebody who has survived 2 attempted murders, one of them on live television. And so the media doesn't want that. I mean, and since, Trump is Hitler, right? So our corrupt media thinks that covering 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump in the span of 8 weeks would be like, they would probably think it was a bad idea to cover Operation Valkyrie against Hitler. So that, so the media, if anything, is probably just disappointed. And we're going to be playing clips to show how disappointed they are that he hasn't been taken out yet. It is an outrage that Mayorkas has not immediately, after the first assassination attempt, said we will spare no expense or resources of any kind to ensure the safety of the Republican candidate for president and the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. Nothing approaching that kind of seriousness of mission has occurred in either the Secret Service or the Department of Homeland Security. And it is great that Ron DeSantis, since this was, he says, look, this is an attempted murder in my state of Florida. This is a state matter in that regard. So we're going to investigate this, this attempted murder of Donald Trump on a golf course in Florida. And so that is the only chance we will have to actually get to the bottom of it. And I hope he does that investigation quickly, transparently, with regular updates on what they have learned about this would-be assassin, the second would-be assassin in 8 weeks. Donnie, you and I met in the office last week as we were getting ready for our benefit dinner. And I was just, we were chatting and it's like, this is so bizarre. We actually are talking about 2 attempts on Trump's life in the span of just 8 weeks. And we'd already forgotten really much, for the most part, the first one. And then it happens again. And I was talking to a friend, and I was, contemplating something that just seems crazy. And I started thinking to myself, what would happen if the third time's a charm? And let's just say sometime a few weeks before the election, the assassin succeeds in taking out a man who is universally described by every Democrat in the country and every media outlet that is consumed by the masses as a threat to democracy. When Joe Biden calls him basically and his supporters fascists, what do you think is going to happen? So what happens if, say, just like 2 weeks before the election, the next assassin succeeds? What happens then? I mean, can you still vote for Donald Trump? People have already mailed in their ballots. Would it just be that J.D. Vance is sworn in as president and then picks his own vice president after Inauguration Day? Who knows? But these are conversations we now have to have because Donald Trump is not safe. The idea that anybody could get within a mile of him without being checked out and without being checked out and being approved to be there is mind-blowing after already one assassination attempt. This is crazy. And I think this is purposefully crazy. Our institutions should be reacting very differently to this amazing turn of events in this country, historic turn of events. And it's not happening.
Right. Yeah. No, it's absolutely nuts. And we could talk about the media's response. I think after the first one, we spent a lot of time talking about, I think we played like montages of people calling him a threat and, like the next Hitler and all of that sort of stuff. And just like the rhetoric that almost justifies somebody taking some sort of action if they buy into the rhetoric. Right. And, we could do that after the first attempt, the second attempt, the third attempt. We could talk about that story for sure. But this is kind of interesting. We've got a couple of clips that I think kind of show the spectrum of the response by some in the media. The first one is Hillary Clinton. And before we play this clip, reconfirm to me, Jim, that this was after Sunday's events. Right? This Hillary Clinton talking after Sunday's events. Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure because it's so bizarre in that context. So let's go ahead and play that clip of Hillary Trump attack. Let's go and play that one, please.
You mentioned the press, and sadly, the press is still not able to cover Trump the way that they should. They careen from one outrage to the next. What was outrageous 3 days ago is no longer on the front pages, even though it threatens the physical safety of so many people. And I don't understand why it's so difficult for the press to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is. Journalists should, really try to achieve objectivity. And by that, he said, I mean, they should cover the object. Well, the object in this case is Donald Trump, his demagoguery, his danger to our country and the world, and stick with it. Part of what Trump is counting on is for people to get desensitized. Americans need to understand that they have to take Trump both seriously and literally. He has said what he wants to do. He and his allies with Project 2025, his desire to be a dictator, at least on day one, all of that is in the public record. And I believe that more Americans have to be, willing to endure what frankly is discomforting and to some extent kind of painful. To take him at his word and to be outraged by what he represents. And
yeah, so Chris, the media is not doing enough to make Trump out to be the next Hitler, according to Hillary Clinton. I mean, come on, what? What's your reaction to Hillary Clinton?
Oh, my reaction is thank God she did not win in 2016. Just
No
thank God.
kidding.
My other reaction is just go away. Please stop it. She's promoting some new book that she's got. So she's making her way on Rachel Maddow and the usual talk shows. She was on Morning Joe this morning, just spewing this ridiculous rhetoric. I mean, I don't think anybody takes her seriously. She is just, the epitome of the establishment and everything that, Americans, I think, are just sick and tired of. And I think she just needs to go away.
I mean, Sam, I don't know if you have the same amount of vitriol for the mainstream media that, like, let's say Jim has, but I mean, that's that's a bizarre statement from Hillary Clinton. Like, does she not know what the media does day in, day out with Donald Trump? They don't have a consistent narrative demonizing him about everything that he does. And the idea that like some outrage of last week isn't on the front pages today or something, it's like, well, first off, how much stuff are you going to put on the front pages? And as you mentioned, like they're still dredging up the good guys on both sides and the January 6th and, all the other stuff that he's like taken out of context against him. So what is she talking about? Is she even in reality? What's your take on it, on those comments?
Well, everything is about the accumulation of power and centralizing power among a smaller and smaller group of people. And so with Hillary, the issue is that, well, this works against that because this person could even, in fact, get elected because people might be sympathetic towards somebody who's been shot at a zillion times and has raised his fist in triumph when they just missed his killing him, and he also seems to have a lot of people that for some reason think he's sensible and in fact a good guy, when in fact we know what the truth is. We are the arbiters of truth. We're the arbiters of what's real. And when the press fail to tell our story, then they are failing to be objective. And the problem here is that the press in history have seldom been objective. That was, in fact, a progressive era innovation, the notion that the press are objective and that you can trust the press. Well, the whole idea was that they're the experts. They know best. They know how to process information. They know how to figure out what's true and what isn't. And then you need to sit down and listen to them and do as they say or do as they imply. The problem being, of course, that what they used to have before the progressive era is say you were living in Chicago, you would have 3 or 4 or 5 newspapers, and one would be very strongly Democrat, one would be very strongly Republican, and then you would have sort of in between 3 other newspapers that would take different positions. But they were perfectly open about their partisanship and about their biases, and I think that's a legitimate way of presenting the news, to say this is coming from this perspective. If you don't agree with that perspective or you don't want to hear it, you don't have to. The problem we have now is that it comes from a certain perspective. That perspective is portrayed as objective, and you are not even allowed to hear the alternatives. Up until, of course, Elon Musk bought Twitter.
Right.
They had complete control even over the social media links to these articles and so forth. So the problem that we have is that this expert class, this small group of people that wants to centralize power because they know best, recognizes that if information is allowed to get out and they are not able to control the narrative, the term "the narrative" just means the myth. We live by myths, and the narratives we live by are the myth that the central government knows what they're doing, that the biggest corporations know what they're doing, and that it's all for the benefit of the public, and that the universities are teaching people to think, and that the schools are teaching young people to be able to do math and read and all the things that they need to improve their lives and become good and responsible citizens. These are all myths. And so Hillary's saying they have got away from the myth for a couple of hours. We can't have that.
Yeah, right.
Just I've been watching the mainstream media for 20 years now, almost on a regular basis. And I can tell you that since 2016, since 2015, since Donald Trump, announced that he would be running for president and started to win some primary races, the mainstream media has gone from being biased towards Democrats to being literally a functional arm of the Democrat Party. And I think that's a good segue into our next one because, we now know that this debate was rigged.
Oh, well, yes. Yeah, we will get into that. I'm not going to use that as a segue because there's a couple of other things that I want to talk
Sure.
about. Jim, I'm going to go to you, but I want to play this Cuomo clip because it looks like he's off CNN. I don't follow Cuomo.
He's
It
on
looks
News
like he's
Nation.
yeah, so he's moved on to News Nation, and maybe he's not just getting the daily briefing reports on the narrative. And he had this to say about the most recent Trump assassination attempt that I think goes completely polar to Hillary Clinton's comments. So let's go ahead and play that Cuomo clip, please.
You can think what you want about Trump. He does not have many more full-throated critics of what he says and does than me. Okay? And yet I called him today because I am ashamed of how we are responding and not responding to the threats on him. And I feel for his family. And I know you can roll your eyes and say, oh, yeah, he asked for it. Listen, that's your choice, and I think it's a wrong choice, okay? What is going on with us? I don't get it. That's why I reached out to Trump. I wanted to just say, listen, I'm really sorry that this is going on and it's being dealt with this way. Not because I'm in favor of his politics or what he says. I criticize him all the time. That's my job, and he deserves it. But he doesn't deserve this.
Yeah, so I think a lot of his comments are in response to this wave of thinking from many on the right, where it's like, the guy didn't even get a shot off. Like, why are we pretending like this is important? Let's move on. You know, and like basically, let's not make a big deal out of this because that might make him more sympathetic in the eyes of your average voter. The shooter, there wasn't even an assassination attempt. He didn't even shoot him. He didn't even have line of sight on him. I've literally seen comments like this trying to just like dismiss this whole thing as being not worth talking about.
I think he was also responding to that poll that came out that 3 in 10 Democrats said that they wish that he would have actually died, and 24% said that they're not sure. That means more than half of Democrats actually want Donald Trump to be assassinated. Like, wow, that's really
Yeah. Well, since you bring it up,
startling.
I'll tee that up before I go to Jim. But there is an article that's published by The Blaze that's titled "Nearly 3 in 10 Democrats polled say that it would be better if Trump had been killed." So it says Scott Rasmussen's RMG Research conducted an online study of 1,000 registered voters for the Neapolitan News Service earlier this week to gauge the public's response to the latest known attempt on the life of President Donald Trump. It says the question that was most staggering results was, quote, while it's always difficult to wish ill upon another human being, would Americans be better off if Donald Trump had been killed this last weekend? And they showed that a staggering 28% of Democrats answered yes. It says only 47% of Democratic respondents indicated that America would not benefit from the assassination of the Republican candidate, and 25% said that they weren't sure. So, Jim, have we seriously gotten to a point in this country where the opposition party either believes it's better off if Trump were assassinated or undecided on the matter? Like, that just seems pretty outrageous. What are your thoughts, Jim?
Well, I mean, I'm glad that poll was conducted because it confirms what a lot of us know in our hearts and in our brains, that half this country and there you go. Half of Democrats either wanted him to die or not really sure. You know, I guess it would have been okay. So kind of passive about it, about that idea. I guarantee you, at the height of Barack Obama's powers, even the vile, disgusting Hillary Clinton, if you were to poll Republicans, there is no way anything approaching that number would be polled among Republicans who wish their political opposition dead. And there is a reason why either half of Democrats are either actively wanting Donald Trump slaughtered, murdered, because and then the other, and then the rest of them, kind of whatever about it. And it's because they have been conditioned by their media to think that would actually be good for the country. That Donald Trump is such a dangerous man and a threat to our democracy and a threat to the very soul of this nation, which is what Joe Biden said in his famous blood red speech in Philadelphia, flanked in the background by Marines to make sure that you get the message that anybody who supports Donald Trump is an enemy of America. There was a disgusting piece of filth on MSNBC just last week. I think it was Elie Mystal. I think that's his name. He has a big Q-tip, gray Q-tip as a hair hat, and we could probably find a picture of that piece of garbage. And he says that the problem is not even really Donald Trump. The problem is all the people who support him, and all the people that support him, whose slogan is "Make America Great Again," who want to return to normalcy, who don't want to see their country and their constitution shredded, who believe in free speech and the importance of the Second Amendment. The media in this country treats everybody who thinks like a normal American thought like 20 minutes ago as the enemy of the state. Hillary Clinton has used the term enemy of the state when it comes to Donald Trump. And in that regard, they are right. He is an enemy to the state, the deep state. And he is a friend of freedom-loving Americans. And the reason why that interview with Hillary Clinton, and she looks horrible. I think being a horrible person comes out on your face because she looks like garbage. She looks terrible. And the reason she can say just 2 days after a second assassination attempt on Donald Trump and still characterize him as a danger and a threat, not just to America, but to the world. And that's how you get that's how you get this division in this country. That is something that we have never seen. When people talk about, they say that J6 was the most dangerous time for America since the Civil War. No, I actually think now is the most dangerous time for America since the Civil War, because our media and one party in this country is doing everything it can to demonize anybody who doesn't think exactly like them. That is extremely dangerous in this country. And I'm not calling for, anyone to be censored or for anyone to be attacked or even harassed. I'm calling on some people. There have to be people on the left who have some sense and who love this country and can see plainly what is going on here. This is the real danger in this country. And that's why we're probably going to see a third, maybe a fourth attempt on Donald Trump's life before November. And that's only 45 days away. This is insane what's going on. And we're going to have another clip that I'm not even mad enough yet. The clip we're going to play later with Karine Jean-Pierre, the spokesperson for the Biden White House. I need to calm down before we play that because I'm getting a little excited. But they will not stop. They will not stop, frankly, until Donald Trump is dead. And they're just upset that they're 0 for 2. But they're going to keep trying.
Well, Jim rants are sponsored by support like viewers like you that are watching this right now. And if you want to donate to the show, you can by going to heartland.org/inthetank and donate directly to the show. We're demonetized by YouTube, but donating that way makes it so that YouTube doesn't take a cut. So if you want to support the show, that is a great way to do it. Jim, I wanted to move on to the next topic, but you promised that video, so let's go ahead and play it. I tried to give you a couple of seconds to calm down, but yeah, let's play that last clip that we have on this topic.
Just to clarify, so You're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this: President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy. He's been clear-eyed about that.
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it, because American people are watching. And to say that from an administration who has consistently condemned political violence, from an administration where the president called the former president and was grateful that he was okay, from an administration who has called out January 6th, called out the attack of Paul Pelosi, called out and said we need to lower the temperature after the Butler incident. And now for you to make that kind of comment in your question, because your question involved a comment and a statement. And, it is, that is also incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, only we're allowed to say that rhetoric leads to violence. You can't say that. You can't accuse us of that. Sam, I don't know, comments on anything that we've talked about so far. It's just
I thought
so
that
much
last
insanity.
exchange was emblematic of the situation. Donald Trump has repeatedly said that they're after you. They're not just after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. And I don't think that the powers that be necessarily want Trump dead. They just want him not as president. And if it takes that, they just don't seem to be bothered by the notion that, well, if it takes an assassination, that's, well, sometimes you have to break a few eggs. So we'll do that. That's cool. But look at it this way. If you want to test whether Trump is right about that, look at what has happened in the nation's cities really since 2016, but accelerating in around 2019 and 2020. The cities have become, many of them are hellscapes. You see the homeless encampments in many of these towns this is disturbing. This is America. I'm like the drunk uncle here. Technically, I'm not drunk. No, I am. But I'm like the drunk uncle here. Is this America? But when you think about it, this is not the way we perceive our country. That we have expansive homeless encampments where there's no law. Where what happened in Seattle with the encampment there, the autonomous zone, trying to take over part of the city, that has become just commonplace all across the country. And people are being shot at, they're being killed, they're being harassed. These are ordinary, regular American people are under fire. And you can tell us that the crime rate is actually down and so on and so forth. But that's rubbish. We're living it. We know what's going on. And we can see that this is absolutely awful conditions. And it's just not, it's not acceptable, quite frankly. But they are the powers that be, the central government, the institutions of our country, the so-called private institutions, most of which have been taken over in various ways by government. They're all together on the notion that if the American people don't do right and vote the right way and follow our instructions and talk exactly as we want them to speak, then they need to be punished. We need to get them in line. And if it includes killing a few people, well, that's okay. And if it includes an assassination, ultimately, because that's what has to happen, well, sometimes abortions just have to happen.
Chris, Jim, final comments on this. We have to move on to our second topic.
Yeah, just real quick, I'll say I cannot believe that KGP is the White House press secretary. I mean, Circleback Saki was terrible. She is 10,000 times more terrible. All she does is look at that binder for her answers and just spouts whatever's in the binder. Wow. I mean, she's got to go. Got to fire her.
Awful
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, Peter Doocy, God bless him. He's the only reporter in the White House press corps, which I used to be a member of 20 years ago now. Gosh, I'm getting old. Who will, when he asked the question, how many more assassination attempts is it going to take until you guys stop calling him a threat? I mean, that was, cathartic to hear that coming out of a reporter's mouth. And KJP, frankly, how dare she have a response like that? We're told constantly by these guys and gals, these people, that, Trump's rhetoric, puts people's physical safety in danger all the time. But no one is ever harmed. That's just, it's weird, right? But, these guys can nutsify Trump all day long, every day for years and years and years, sick the deep state on him, bring up some phony baloney indictments and charges and try to throw him in jail, for years. And there's no accountability for all of this rhetoric that even comes out of the president's mouth. That's why I put those two little clips together, because you need the context of her being asked about that. And she said twice that Joe Biden was clear-eyed about what a threat Donald Trump is. And so there's no accountability for any. So again, supposedly Trump's and JD Vance's rhetoric puts people's physical, safety in danger, although no one is ever harmed. Right. I mean, it just, and so, but if we're going to play this game, how about applying it to your words when it's resulted in 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump? Nope. They just run from that. And then she has the gall to say that even asking the question is dangerous.
Right.
There are not instruments to measure the amount of contempt I have for this White House and for Karine Jean-Pierre based on that answer.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And surely, well, I don't know, maybe not surely, but maybe we'll get more details on all of this and the alleged, assassin and all of that sort of stuff. And we'll talk about it in future weeks. But we got to move on to the next topic here. We got to move on. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. That is, of course, the Trump-Harris debate. This is, like I said, this was like 25 news cycles ago. But the general consensus is that Harris won the debate in terms of public perception. I can only attest to this partially because I can't stand these debates. It's seriously like torture listening to them, but I don't see many people that are like disagreeing with this idea that like kind of Harris was the winner. Does anyone want to object to that?
I completely object to that. So I watched the entire debate in full, watched a ton of coverage after the fact, and been really watching the polling after this. So according to the political pundits, Kamala Harris had the greatest performance in the history of debates. She outdid Abraham Lincoln. I mean, it was just wow, man. It was amazing.
Right.
But according to the people, she actually did not do that great of a job. Reuters came out with a poll, I think it was the day after, saying, now that you've seen the debate, who are you more likely to vote for, Kamala Harris or Trump? 60% said Trump. So and that's just one poll. There have been other polls that have said the same thing. So yeah, Joe Scarborough, Mika, all them say that Kamala Harris had the greatest debate ever, but she really didn't, because you know why? She didn't explain anything to the people. The people who watched that debate wanted to get clear answers on her economic agenda, what she's going to do about immigration, and other things. She didn't do any of that. She did her I'm a middle class person, which is actually not true. Blah blah blah. So yeah, so she didn't fall on her face and launch into word salad after word salad. She sort of kind of made sense, I guess, but she did not offer the American people any details on the policies that really, really matter to them. And although the pundit class said, oh, Trump was terrible, the people thought actually Trump did a great job. You know why? Because he just kept saying, you know what, there's 3 things that matter: the economy, the border, and crime. And he's dead 1000% right about that. Those are the issues that people care about. The debate, they wanted to make it more about abortion and these issues that are on the periphery. Those issues don't matter nearly as much to people as the big 3: the economy, crime, and the border. And
Right.
Donald Trump did a great job, I think. I mean, he could have done maybe a little bit better, but he did a very good job of keep pivoting back to that, and back to that. So, I mean, just, based on also when you look at where polls are now, because we're more than a week out, there's been no incredible bounce for Kamala.
Sure.
So, actually, she's doing worse than in many of the polls. So, no, she did not win that debate. Maybe according to Van Jones and other commentators on CNN and such. Yeah, she probably outperformed what they expected of her. But the American people saw right through that, and that is a huge thing that Kamala Harris cannot overcome, because she refuses to give detailed answers on what she would do. And the American people know why she's refusing to do that, because either 1, she doesn't know what she's going to do, or number 2, she's trying to do a bait and switch and say, hey, I'm going to be a moderate. And then, day one, if she were to win, which I don't think she's going to, she'd go in and be the most progressive, crazy, socialist, communist, Marxist, president in all of human history.
Yeah, well, there's also this like this trying to like paint her as this like outsider when she's like
Yeah.
currently in the administration right now. It's like they should be treating her more or less like she's the incumbent, but they're like, they're not holding her responsible in any way to what's going on in the economy right now. And that's actually like the thing that got me the most in the 15 minutes of the debate that I actually did watch was like the first question. ABC correctly identified that the economy, that's like the biggest issue, the one that's most important to voters. And they asked Kamala Harris about her plan to help the economy. And she started talking about her middle class upbringing before, talking about other stuff that her administration would do if elected, stuff that we talked about on this podcast in past weeks. And I just thought like Trump missed an opportunity to just like hammer her on the fact that she's currently part of the presidential administration. Like, why is it some magical thing that if you were to become president, now you're going to be able to get all these like left-wing ideas through? I just feel like it could have been like a first-round knockout.
True, but his closing statement, he said that exact thing. And the closing statement is what I think is going to actually resonate most with people because, the opening questions, probably people, kind of forget them, after a while. But Donald Trump's closing statement was a very powerful closing statement because he said, "You've been in the White House for 3.5 years. Why haven't you done this already?" And American people, they know that.
Right. Sam, I kind of cut you off earlier when you were bringing up the kind of the lopsided state of the debate and, one side getting fact checked constantly on, a whole bunch of stuff. Yet Kamala Harris was able to get away with the fine people lie and the, Trump saying that there's going to be a bloodbath lie. And, one lie after the January 6th police deaths. She talked about how that there's not one member of the United States military who's in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world for the first time this century. She was able to say that she wasn't in favor of defunding the police. None of these things were fact checked, but again, it's like, should we be surprised? Like, I'm not surprised. Like, it's, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, given that these debates are not actual debates, of course, they're just sort of joint press conferences.
Right.
And in a press conference, the questioners can make the questions whatever they want them to be. So that's the problem in terms of the problem in deciding who won a debate. I think it should be solved very simply, which is what are you trying to accomplish? Which in any debate is, of course, to move some people into your column, some voters into your column. And in a situation like we presently have, there are a few swing states where you really want to move those voters. So what we had here in this debate was you can see the two different objectives of the two candidates and their teams. Trump's was to hang the Biden administration around Harris's neck and make her deal with that and leave that with the voters, that this person who's running for president against me is going to be like the Biden administration, only worse. So that was his objective. Harris's objective clearly was to say that Donald Trump is not qualified to be president of the United States because of his bad character. So her goal was to say Orange Man bad. Okay, well, here's the thing. Orange Man bad, everybody already knows that. Everyone already has their opinion of Trump. They're going to vote for him or not vote for him based on what they think he will do to the country, largely. There are some people who simply won't vote for him because they can't stand his personality. But in general, people already knew what they thought of Trump. He was not on trial there. Harris was on the trial run. And Harris needed to distance herself from the Biden administration. She failed to do that. She didn't really even particularly attempt it. She tried in a desultory manner a couple of times, but really didn't score anything there. And Trump followed up on his goal, which was to hang that administration around her neck, weigh her down with it. And he did that successfully. As Chris pointed out, the final statement of Trump was all about that. But throughout the debate, his whole agenda, although there were moments where he felt a need to protect himself from more horrible claims about what an awful person he is, but I think we can all understand that. We can relate to that. If you're really getting pounded on all the time, you feel like, come on, I'm not really that person. But the key thing is that he needed to hang all the disasters of the last 4 years around her neck. They are. And he then could hope to move some swing voters some undecided voters into his column. And in that way, I think he probably succeeded. That some people said, yeah, I just don't believe in this woman. She's just the same thing, only worse. Harris did not do anything that would move any voters, because if you're an undecided voter, you know all this about Trump already, and you're still undecided. That to me says that you think that he's basically he's pretty good for the country, but he's annoying. In which case, just her spending an hour and a half, 2 hours saying he's annoying doesn't move anybody. So I think that the way I look at it, Trump won because he could move some votes, and Harris lost.
Jim, you can either take first swing at the next topic, or you can offer your comments on this topic. What do you want to do? Oh, you're muted. You are muted.
Working on stuff on the background, so I didn't want to have the clickety clack of my keyboard on.
Don't need the explanation. Just go ahead.
Yeah, we don't need the explanation. So I just want to point out that Kamala Harris has not received any post-debate bump in the polls, which is what you would expect if she demolished Trump in that debate. I actually thought Trump did pretty well in about the first 20 minutes. He was almost low energy, like your cold open today. It was like very calm. And then both Kamala Harris and, of course, the two moderators who were working for the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris knew all the buttons to push and got Trump off message, and he just started getting angrier. And I don't blame him, because it was 3-on-1. And I think he handled himself pretty well, all things considered. And he did have a nice closing statement. And he was able to make, the point that all these things you want to do. What do you mean turning the page? What do you mean a new way forward? You've been in office for 4 years.
Right.
I find it amazing. If we had an honest political press in this country, they would be laughing in the face of the Democrats right now, saying that, you guys are the incumbents. You're acting like Trump is the incumbent. That was what was so bizarre about that whole debate. The whole debate was acting as if Trump's been president for the last 4 years, and he hasn't been. That's obvious to everybody. So, I think in the end, I think Chris is right. I think Kamala actually had a lot to do in that debate to convince people to vote for her. I mean, Donald Trump is the most known political commodity on the globe. He has his voters already. He needed to persuade people who don't really like him and maybe don't even want to vote for him that the economy is in the garbage because of the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. And I think he actually accomplished that pretty well. So,
yeah, it's I don't know. It's not shocking to me the way that whole thing went down. It's kind of how I expected the first debate to go down, to kind of like really kind of like prop Joe Biden up. Almost literally at that point, but it seemed like they were a little bit more successful this time around. And in the aftermath of the debate, there's been an interesting document circulating around that I don't think that it's been confirmed or anything. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding that this is an unconfirmed story. But again, circulating online is a supposed sworn affidavit signed by a notary containing statements from an ABC employee blowing the whistle on underhanded practices by ABC when putting together the debate, as well as claims about ABC News in general. But according to this affidavit, ABC provided the Harris campaign with various accommodations, including stuff relating to the size of the podiums, to the use of split screen to favor Harris. According to the document, quote, it was agreed that Donald Trump would be subjected to fact checking during the debate, while Kamala Harris would not face comparable scrutiny. This particular point was apparently agreed upon during conversations with the Harris campaign, conversations that had not been had with the Trump campaign. Apparently, Harris was provided with sample questions that were very similar to the final questions used during the debate. And also, according to this document, the Harris campaign imposed restrictions on the questions that were going to be posed to the candidates, including demands that, quote, no question regarding the perceived health of President Joe Biden, no inquiries relating to her tenure as Attorney General in San Francisco, and no questions concerning her brother-in-law, Tony West, who faces allegations of embezzling billions of dollars in taxpayer funds, who may be involved in her administration if elected. Chris, I'm going to go to you on this one because this seems almost too on the nose to be believable, but at the same time, we are living in a complete clown world. So who knows? So what are your thoughts on this supposed affidavit that's going around?
Okay, well, first of all, I used to think that NBC was by far the worst of the worst when it came to fake news. I have changed my opinion on that. It actually is ABC, okay? And that's been confirmed by this debate and the fact that George Stephanopoulos, who basically runs ABC News, is a diehard Democrat who served as Bill Clinton's chief of staff. And I just think about that for a second. You've got someone who served as the chief of staff for a former Democrat president running the news division at ABC. How is that possible? The ABC has just gone down the rabbit hole of, fake news media. I can't stand to watch the ABC, news at night anymore. It's just terrible. Their Sunday show is, awful. Like I said earlier, and this, is an indictment of the entire media, but ABC, I think, is the worst offender in this exact election cycle. They've literally become instruments of the Democrat Party. And like you said, I mean, obviously, we don't know if this is 1000% true. This whistleblower account or so, but based on what I saw, it really seems like it. And now that this did come out, and I think back, why didn't they ask all those questions? Those are the questions that were on the top of voters' minds. So, ABC in recent years has really gone downhill. I was also really disappointed when the word came out that they refused to blow open the story on Epstein because of their, desire to remain good with the royal family. I mean, are you kidding me? Just say the news. Tell us the news and be honest about it. But yeah, this is just really par for the course, and ABC News sucks. Boycott it, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, I'm curious as to your thoughts on this. Up and until this gets confirmed or dismissed as just being some forged document or something like that, we still all saw the same thing. It's very likely that all of that stuff is true. There's just no whistleblower coming out and saying it. Now, maybe that's being a little too cynical, but again, like what Chris said, it's like you look at it and you almost have to believe it's true based on what went down in the debate. But what are your thoughts on this one?
It's not possible to be too cynical. We're talking about the American corporate media here. And I thought going in, I only half joked, I know that we were texting each other and stuff before the debate, and you were smart. You didn't watch it and you weren't participating in a live.
I tapped out after 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, you checked out, but smart man. I stayed for the duration of it. But, I joked beforehand. It's well, obviously Kamala's going to get the questions beforehand. I mean, if you remember, there was a lot of, controversy about how, the negotiations were going to do the debate in the first place. It almost, supposedly almost didn't happen. And, this memo lays out what anybody with eyes would see would be the conditions for Kamala Harris to participate in a debate with Donald Trump. And that is that she would be prepared for the debate in some capacity by the debate moderators themselves. Lindsay Davis, was that her name? David Muir and Lindsay Davis. Yeah. I read somewhere that she was a sorority sister of Kamala Harris. Wow. Of all the journalists in all the world, she gets one of her moderators is an old sorority sister of hers. And the president of ABC News, ABC News, introduced Kamala Harris to her husband. What a coincidence. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And if you put those things together and you couple it with the attitude that the media has right now and that they're selling to the American people, that the re-election of Donald Trump would constitute a existential threat to America itself, and then put all those other pieces together, of course there was going to be cheating on behalf of Kamala Harris. They don't care. They don't care about credibility. Trump in 2016 broke so many institutions, but especially the media and especially Hollywood, and they remain broke, and they're gonna stay broke, and I don't think they can ever be fixed because they have given up all pretenses of credibility. The media didn't really have a lot of credibility to begin with. Now it's completely shot. So yes, interesting about this. I don't know if you mentioned these details in your setup, Donnie, but this whistleblower, if you notice on the letter, it's dated September 9th, the day before the debate. He wrote this out before the debate on purpose. He mailed a certified letter on September 9th to House Speaker, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, again, to prove that this was done before the debate, because he knew this was happening beforehand. And then he mailed like several versions of the letters, like something out of some kind of spy novel or something.
Right, sure.
Or out of a movie, right? And so he saw this happening, if you believe that this is legit. And I guess we'll maybe one day find out soon whether it is legit, but it didn't come out of nowhere. I don't think it's fake news. We should actually get to the bottom of it. This person should be interviewed somewhere. There should be some proving of this, but an indication that it is true is that ABC gave a pretty denial about it. They said they didn't give the questions beforehand to Kamala Harris. Well, right. Maybe not the questions, but the topics. So they didn't ask about the topics. They just addressed the questions. And again, we have to look at this in the context of the 2016 election, when Donna Brazile, when she was working for CNN, gave the questions to Hillary Clinton before the debate. Right. So when you have Democrats running every news outlet and institution in this country, and that includes Fox News, guys, got to break it to you, this is the kind of thing you end up with, which is why people come to YouTube to watch podcasts like this to get more honest assessments of what's going on in the world. And so the credibility of the media is going to be gone. Election night is going to be a complete poop show because they're not going to call any states. And so, I got to make sure I may need blood pressure medicine by the time we get to November 5th.
Sam, I'm curious as to your thoughts about this supposed affidavit. Before you talk, though, make sure you unmute yourself. We don't want to pull a Jim here. But yeah, I don't know. Like it just, I forgot about that detail, that it was, this was like sent around before the debate, but this just seems like something, if this were to come out like 10 years ago in whatever presidential race was happening 10 years ago, it would be like the biggest news story, biggest controversy, election controversy of like that era. And now it's just like page 12 news. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think the point Jim made about how the media, and especially the news media, are crumbling through their own corruption is accurate. I think it's very interesting that we're expected to be skeptical about a claim that the debate was rigged. Think about that. That's the myth of objective journalism.
Right.
It's a myth. It was never true, and it's definitely not true right now. When all the journalism of the 30s and 40s and 50s, which was supposed to be a very good time for journalism, when that was all occurring, it was all in favor of the state, of the form of organization that our government and society had during that period, and that has concentrated since. So for us to say, well, gee, I wonder that sounds. Of course, it's dubious to claim that they rigged the debate. No, it shouldn't be dubious at all. Well, it should be that, of course, sure, they rigged the debate. We
Yeah,
just got it. What's dubious is that we somehow got evidence this time.
Right. Yeah. I totally forgot about that one about like Hillary Clinton getting the debate questions. Like, totally
Mhm.
forgot. That's been memory hold, like along with a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, like you're absolutely right. It's like I almost need proof that this wasn't fixed. Like
Right.
that's the sort of
And
evidence that I want.
and this is what's happening. This is what's happening to all our institutions. They're becoming so inept. But when Chris mentioned Homeland Security, the first thing I thought of is that thing was bad from the start. That Homeland Security was a
Sure.
bad idea, and it's been horribly executed. And my contention is that our government and all of our major institutions are both incompetent and malevolent. They're malevolent toward normal human beings, people who just want to uh, do their job and maybe make the world a little bit better so that they can get some profit from it and be able to eat and have a roof over their head and so forth. And our government and institutions seem to dislike that very badly, and they would rather have everybody either be in the governor's mansion or a homeless encampment. That's the way it looks. And it's not a shock. And nothing that happens anymore should be a shock because
Seriously.
of the combination. It's an incredibly fascinating combination of incompetence and malevolence. You don't really see that very often. The late Soviet Union, there's
Right.
there's where you get that.
All right.
Cuba.
We're 11 minutes long already, but the sidebar promises we're going to talk about one more topic, so we're going to go to that. Chris, this was your idea to have this as a segment. We've got 46 days left before the election, and I'm curious of kind of like the state of the race, because if you just like kind of go by just what's in the media ether out there, it's like, oh yeah, Kamala Harris is just crushing it. She's absolutely crushing it. But you could look at like a number of things that give kind of contradictory. Like when I was pulling together the show notes for this, I was finding things that were kind of contradictory. So one of them was a Fox News article that says polling guru Nate Silver predicts Trump has a 64% chance of winning the Electoral College in the latest forecast. However, I also found a article from 538 that's titled "Who is favored to win the 2024 presidential election?" And I think they had it like 64% Kamala Harris. So what is your read on the current state of the race, Chris?
Okay, national polls don't matter. So just take all the national polls and throw them in the garbage because that's where they belong. All that matters are the swing states. And when you look at the swing states, especially when you look at the real clear policy average, Trump has a lead in 5 of the 7 swing states. If he maintains that lead in those 5 swing states, he wins the Electoral College hands down. I also do want to say that here we are 46 days to the election. Let's go back to the same exact point in time in 2016 and in 2020. Donald Trump was down by double digits nationally at this exact point in time in both of those elections. If you care about national polls, which I really don't, they're about tied. Okay. When you look at the swing state polls, in 2016 and in 2020, at this point in time, Donald Trump was down between like 3 to 9 points in every single one of those swing states. He now is leading in 5 of 7 of those swing states. So I think those are the polls that really matter. I do put a pretty good emphasis on Nate Silver's election model, and regardless of that article, I don't know who wrote it or what it is, but according to his algorithmic model, Donald Trump is supposedly going to win by, or is not supposedly going to win, has a 60% chance of winning as of right now. One other quick thing I just do want to mention, the Teamsters Union. It's been almost 4 decades since the Teamsters Union did not endorse a Democrat candidate for president. Guess what just happened yesterday? The Teamsters announced that they will not endorse Kamala Harris. Now, they did not endorse Donald Trump, but they released a poll among their rank and file members. That poll showed that 60% of Teamster Union rank and file members, not the leadership, say that they are going to vote for Donald Trump. That is a historic change of events. If the Teamsters Union, the union of all unions, which is supposed to be, basically controlled by the Democrat Party, is now flipping at a 60-40 clip to Donald Trump, Kamala Harris cannot win this election. Now, when you combine that with some of the other polls that have come out showing that Donald Trump has about a 30% of the black male vote, that is very bad news for Kamala. Donald Trump has a significant lead in what he had among the Hispanic vote at this point in time, both in 2016 and 2020. So, first of all, I don't trust polls because 2016 and 2020 showed us that they are just really not accurate. Pollsters have a tendency to overpoll Democrats. When you look at some of the best polls, Trafalgar Group and some others, they show that Donald Trump has a very, very good chance to win at least 5 of those 7 swing states. And also, we're not paying as much attention to the House races and the Senate races. But as of now, the Republican Party is going to maintain its lead in the House, its majority, and they are almost guaranteed to have the majority in the Senate. So things are actually looking very good for 2025 for the Republican Party. I am not a diehard Republican by any means. However, every 4 years and every 2 years, we face a choice, and that choice, like it or not, is is basically between 2 extremes. When it comes down to it, the Democrat Party, especially in recent years, they have become so the antithesis of my personal values of low taxes, low government, more personal freedom. I can't help but say that I'm supporting the Republican Party. In the past, I have voted Libertarian. I don't think I'm going to be doing that this year. So I'm going to do all I can to make sure that the Republican Party has a landslide victory. And I think that is going to happen, barring something insane happening between now and then. And I would not discount that. So
let's just say that
that's my one caveat.
The comments from all of our panelists are their personal opinions and not necessarily reflective of the organization as a whole. That should be said at the beginning of every one of these episodes. But, Jim or Sam, we are 16 minutes long in this episode. Do you have any comments on this final section of 46 days left before the election? Let me have it if you do.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. The fact is that Trump is looking good, and he's very much a closer. He's very good at closing an election. He always increases his numbers as time goes on, and that is again because of the personality thing. People don't want to vote for him, but they will because they know he's the better. He's better for them, for their pocketbooks, and now for their physical safety. I will say this though: what I would expect is given that Kamala Harris is now heading toward the same territory that Joe Biden was when he was basically removed, when he was removed from the candidacy. I think we should expect something interesting to happen within the next by the end of the month.
Yeah,
yesterday, Donald Trump held a rally in Uniondale, New York, and had more than 20,000 people in that, and had 50,000 people waiting outside. That was in New York State. Donald Trump's internal polling must be very good if he's spending time in New York State and not going to Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and the others, because I'm willing to bet that he is very confident that he has those on lockdown as of now.
That's the real way to know who's winning is by what they do.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I will say that I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump wins by a wide margin, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he just completely gets swamped out. So I have no idea. I have no predictions. Jim, final thoughts on this episode before we wrap it up.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember in the 2020 election, one of Donald Trump's last rallies was in, about where he got shot a few weeks back in Western Pennsylvania in Butler County. And it was an enormous success. There was multiple tens of thousands of people there. Meanwhile, Joe Biden was campaigning from his basement, and any outdoor rallies he did have, people were sitting in their cars, or they were in those absurd little white circles with a couple of things, 10 feet apart. It was like, so it was a joke. Yeah. And so all of the things that you could see with your eyes told you that Donald Trump was going to win re-election. And then most people went to sleep on election night thinking Donald Trump had won re-election. and then counting continued to happen or not happen right in the places that it needed to in order to put Biden over the top. So if you're on X, follow a guy named Larry Schweikert. He is a friend of Heartland. He's done a few events with us here over the years. He has been his job basically is he's been looking at the voter registration in all the swing states and Republican voter registration. And this is gains since in between the two presidential elections. Republicans are gaining in states like Pennsylvania and Nevada and Arizona and Georgia. And so they're beating the Democrats at that part of the ground game. We will see. What's going to be really frustrating is that we won't really know who is president until the people who run the elections in those key states are done counting. Mm-hmm. So, there's the Hugh Hewitt is a radio host. He had a book, gosh, it must be 20 years old now, where it said, if it's not close, they can't cheat. And so that's the way I'm thinking about the 2024 election. We'll see.
Yeah, and we got several weeks of this show between now and then, so surely we're going to have more sections talking about kind of the state of the race and the lead up to the 2024 election. But that is going to do it for this week. I want to thank all of you who have tuned in for this episode of the In the Tank podcast. Join us every week for a new episode. For those audio-only listeners that are probably catching the show on a Friday or later, please leave a review for us on iTunes. That would be greatly appreciated. And also consider joining us a day earlier on Thursdays at noon Central Time, where we are live streaming this on Facebook and YouTube and Rumble and X. And you can join the conversation, throw your comments and questions in the chat. Maybe we'll show your comments on the screen. Maybe we'll address your questions on the fly. You could also help out the show financially by going to heartland.org/inthetank and donating directly to the show. We have been demonetized by YouTube, so you can't do it that way. So you got to do it this way, which is better because now YouTube doesn't get to tax it at 30%. You could also help out the show by just hitting that like button, subscribing if you haven't already, sharing this content, or just leaving a comment under the video. All helps break through those big tech algorithms to prevent content like this from being shown to more people. If you'd like, you could follow us on Twitter at InTheTankPod. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for the show, feel free to email us at inthetankpodcast@gmail.com. Jim Lakely, where can the fine people find you?
At J Lakely on X, at Heartland Inst on X, and always visit heartland.org.
Fantastic. Chris Talgo, what do you have to pitch today?
I have nothing to pitch today, Donnie.
I'm
I'm sorry.
Man, a few words. Find him on the golf course, folks.
Yes, I will be there this weekend.
And Sam Karnick, where can people go to find your work?
At ST Karnick on X and on all the other social media there, you'll find me. And check out my Substack, which is ST Karnick.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.